Hello, my brothers and sisters. Yesterday I posted a link to an article that says, recent research confirms the Shroud of Turin is Jesus's burial cloth. Faith and science align. And although maybe that title isn't something that I would use, because I don't think that that the recent research, which establishes an old date, 2,000-year-old date, or a possible 2,000-year-old date for the Shroud of Turin, which fits the tradition that is Jesus's burial cloth. I think that does not confirm that specifically. Research does not prove that it's Jesus's burial cloth. It proves that it is old enough that it could be. And so I would not choose that title. However, taken collectively with its history and its unexplained nature, the fact that nobody who's studying it today knows how that cloth could be reproduced by any natural means is really significant stuff. You could say that overall it points to it being authentic. There's a tradition with it. There's also an unexplained cloth that could easily be adopted by Christianity and then become associated with Christianity, you understand? Either way, even if there was no story attached to it, no religious significance at all, the cloth itself as an artifact would be fascinating because of that reason, that nobody knows by what technological means it was produced. And so it would be an enigma. And that's okay to have enigmas. We have a lot of enigmas in the world that don't have an answer, a ready answer, or one that we could be sure of. Now, there's something called anxiety, right? People have a certain amount of anxiety about unanswered questions in general. And this is why, when they hear the story of Jack the Ripper and don't know who he is and study who the different candidates could potentially be, the mind will seek out and want to rest on one and answer the question, right? And for those people who are committed to non-faith, they want to answer the question in a way that's, dismissive, just to get it resolved, get it off my table, get it off my calendar or whatever, put it to bed. And that is part of our selection bias and our confirmation bias. But somebody commented on my post, because I said that the Shroud of Turin is striking evidence, and so also is the Book of Mormon, because neither can be sufficiently explained in light of all the evidence by a natural explanation that is simpler than a supernatural one. That means that in light of everything surrounding the Book of Mormon, any story proposed that accounts for all the facts, and there's very few that attempt to do so, becomes so convoluted and relies on such drastic coincidences that it makes it untenable, right? And so I want to talk about faith but also evidence. So somebody posted on that a link to a documentary that said Jesus Christ never existed. And I only listened to 5 minutes of it, and it seemed like a regurgitation of zeitgeist, which contains some non-factual assertions itself. But this video on YouTube it opens with somebody saying repeating the old adage, with extraordinary claims, it requires extraordinary evidence. And that may sound sensible, but there's a problem with that. And I actually feel that it's a laughable assertion, I mean, if you stop and ask why does the claim require evidence at all? Especially because in the world of spirituality, the story is intended to be a possibility expander, right? I'm sharing the story to witness to you and create possibility for you, but I'm telling you to follow up and do your own research. The world of faith is an internal world, and one in which everyone needs to go and experience it themselves and come to their own evidence, and they can't share it with anyone. They can't prove it to anyone, because that would be doing their work for them, and that would also be doing their development for them, and we all know that that doesn't work. If you want to teach a child mathematics, for instance, you can't answer all the problems for them, right? You have to give them the problems and maybe give them some encouragement, do a few of them for them, but they have to work out the problems, and they have to show their math, and they have to repeat it and learn it, and that's what we're doing in faith, is the witnessing and the prophetizing, proselytizing and being a prophet and saying, I saw an angel and I heard the voice of God. Those are supposed to create possibility for you so that you hear the voice of God, so that you learn to trust the promptings of the Holy Spirit leading you and giving you an anchor in truth within yourself. And that truth doesn't require evidence, because as we see in the world, evidence can be forged and manufactured. There's tons of it. There's fake news everywhere. There's debates about the most fundamental things in the world right now, and no resolution in supposedly an information age. And that really shows how ludicrous this idea of proving things are. We're coming to the point where we can't trust the news. We can't trust history, because we know now that history is all largely fabricated, as would be convenient to those in power at the time. Okay? And so, it's ironic on the one hand for a title of a documentary to make the bold and unfounded and extraordinary assertion that Jesus Christ never existed, and to say that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And I didn't listen to the whole thing yet, right? So I don't know what evidence they could possibly come up with, but I heard immediately them say that their evidence that he didn't exist was that he's not located on the contemporary written accounts at the time, that people that were noteworthy as far as what's been preserved didn't mention him until a significant number of years after his death, which immediately I don't find extraordinarily compelling, right? There could be a lot of reasons why somebody's not mentioned on the public documents, especially somebody who was practically a homeless preacher, a fringe group, a radical, who was not at all appreciated by the Jewish religious establishment at the time, who didn't want to promote his message, or the Romans who executed him. So that's not particularly compelling to me. But watching that and listening to that, it just so happened that yesterday I was listening to a history of particle physics, and while I was working, and I heard about the guy that discovered quarks. A brilliant mind, very unique individual, capable of thought on a level few people in the history of humanity could equate with. And he came up with a theory of quarks, the subatomic particles, at a time when the establishment believed that the atom was the smallest particle possible, indivisible, nothing smaller, no components to it, the most basic building block of matter and all reality. And here's somebody coming with the math and the evidence and a extraordinary claim that there's something smaller. And the people of his day rejected it, and they ignored him, and they laughed, and they ridiculed him, and they would not believe or even look at his evidence until years later, when another discovery by someone else made that evidence impossible to ignore. And that really tells us something significant, that the most brilliant mind of his day, or one of them, speaking to his colleagues who are also the most brilliant minds, making an extraordinary claim and providing the required evidence, still cannot compel even the most intelligent people to look at the evidence, suspend judgment, and get in there and analyze it. And if you study science, this story repeats again and again and again. So that we should not wonder when we look out at the world and we look at all the disbelief and the people saying the evidence doesn't exist. I tell you that I repeatedly, time and time again, make extraordinary claims. And rare indeed is the occasion that somebody hears an extraordinary claim and says, I'm interested, tell me more, or prove it to me. I want to know, I'll look at it. No, they typically will want to silence me. They will want to not hear. They will pass judgment without investigation. They won't think about it. And then they will walk away thinking whatever they want to think about. And that is what most people do. So it's not surprising that the evidence isn't established or accepted, because people are not looking for evidence in general. People want to confirm what they already believe or what they want to believe, which is most often the same thing. And they're not looking to expand and grow and listen and validate other human beings that might have something to offer. So I want to say to you that there is no lack of evidence that God exists. There's a lack of desire to see it. And, you know, I also believe that the whole point of faith and the whole intention of God is for us to transform ourselves to the point that we seek and we will find, that we knock and it will be open to us. And then on an individual and private basis, each of you will find the evidence you need to support your faith and belief. And that journey and exploration and search is a personal development for you on a spiritual level that will catapult you beyond the concerns of ordinary reality, the flesh, the world, this temporal world that only exists a limited duration. And the whole purpose of it is that we learn something beyond that, more than that. And so I pray that you will make it a point to meditate on how you can take on other perspectives. Look for ways that you can open your mind and not prejudge things and seek more information, just to be open to possibility, suspending judgment, and saying to yourself that you're the equal of everyone else. You know, there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, also, that the majority of people, like 80% of people, believe that they are above average, which incorporates the entire bottom half of the intelligence, you know, how they do the intelligence tests. And that's ironic, because people who are less intelligent are less aware of, you know, the evidences that would bring them into a sense of what they don't know that would give them humility. Where they're actually the most intelligent people who test the highest, those people answer the question that they're not above average, because they do seek and they do gain a sense of how much they don't know. And so they don't assert that they're above average, and they don't assume that they are. They don't assume where other people stand in relation to them on that. So that's a really interesting thing. Now, would you want to be somebody who, you know, generally had a lower IQ, but yet think wrongly that you're smarter than people, and to you know, and to basically assert your ignorance over other people's knowledge of facts? And that's what happens all the time. Now, the only way to address this is to consider it as a possibility, to desire not to lie to yourself, you know. And honestly, I don't believe that there's any kind of status that can genuinely be attached to intelligence. A person of less intelligence is not less worthy in God's eyes than someone of great intelligence. And even the most intelligent of us, the particle physicists, do things that are completely irrational. Like, for instance, having an enlarged ego, you know, believing the delusions that something like that makes them more worthy or more deserving. Those are all illusions. So the smartest among us are still subject to great illusions, delusions of the mind, and vanities. So I think there's a lot of room for all of us to grow, and it's not a status thing, you know. It's just an opportunity to grow and to see with honesty and integrity where you are in relation to your brothers and sisters. And in that regard, I believe that God sees all of us equally, as equally important, equally valid and worthwhile. Not the way we live per se, you know, but we have given this life space to grow and develop and learn. And so one of the points of that would be to just expand the mind and think about ways that you could take on other people's perspectives. Consider new possibilities, because the universe is expansive, and our perspectives, our limited ideas, you know, we create stories that make the world, that we can interface with the world using, okay, but they're limited by nature, which means they're always oversimplified, that we can always learn more, grow and expand and relate to life and each other with more authenticity and a more connected frame of reference. So there's a possibility for you, considering the Dunning-Kruger effect, considering the, you know, this idea about you know, evidence and how difficult it is to convince anybody of anything, because they can always close their eyes to the evidence and not see what they don't want to see. It reinforces the idea that each of us, it's up to us, is it's your life, right? It's your search for truth. If you turn me off or anybody off and don't want to hear them, it's you that suffers, right? You know, you might frustrate them, but you're the one who is not able to fairly evaluate and judge the information, and you lose the opportunity to grow. So it's in your best interest to listen to everyone, to hear, to consider, to be open to the possibility to learn, to change your mind constantly. That's what I love about life, is that wherever I started, it's been a daily growth. You know, people who've been in relationships with me have said, you know, every 3 months you're somebody different, because this never stops. The gathering of information, the changing, the evolving of perspective, it doesn't even slow down. I'm furiously absorbing information, and I never judge the people that talk to me. You know, they have something to share, even if it's an outrageous claim. You know, I'm confident in my ability to evaluate these things. I don't put up walls and barriers that protect me from being misled or wasting my time. You know, if a crazy person on the street were to come and tell me a story, you might think that that's a waste of time to listen because it's some derangement. But as an intelligent observer and a curious being who gathers facts constantly, I don't feel my time is wasted because I'm going to learn something about this person and about life and humanity in the process. So I'm not judging the information so much. I don't see the reason to do that. Yeah, I mean, it only my acceptance of information, my ability to take it all in and process it, it only benefits me expanding my consciousness and awareness and my knowledge base. And so I really want that for everybody. So I hope that's a possibility for you. That opens the doors to possibility that you will benefit from it in some way. I hope it does. God bless you. Take care.